Good evening, everyone.
Hello, everyone. Happy early Valentine's Day. I hope you enjoyed listening to Taylor Swift. It's like my favorite song. It's not on the recording because it's copyright or writ or whatever word you say, but
I wish I could say I was Valentine's themed, but this is just the shirt I wear every day. I'm everyday Valentine's.
I wore my red.
Hmm.
All right, we are going to jump right in. We have some announcements and then we have our content. So, welcome everyone. Excited to have you here this evening for our relationship talk that we do each year around Valentine's Day. And it's particularly about how strengthening your relationship will strengthen your investment strategy. We don't have Rachel with us tonight, so I'm going to be managing chat and everything else, but feel free to be very engaged in chat. I'd love it if you introduce yourself, say where you're coming from, maybe share a tidbit about your relationship. Are you married, single? How long has that been going on? And just get to know each other during our time here together. So
We expect a smaller audience because we didn't really promote this very much since we just launched Fund 3. And we're hoping we get a chance to connect with you all tonight. We're really looking forward to this call.
absolutely. Where is my screen share? There we go.
Investing with your spouse. By the way, this stuff is really important even if you don't have a spouse, even if you're single, unmarried. Your romantic relationship, your intimate relationship, your relationship with your life partner, whatever that looks like. It's the thing that's going to give you the most juice. But these principles are principles that apply universally to anyone you have a close relationship with or have a masculine feminine relationship with. This is universally applicable content. So don't think that you have to be married in order to learn more about investing with your spouse.
Absolutely. And in fact, the first probably about half of the presentation is just general communication relationship stuff. So let's jump in. Our announcement for Black Swan Real Estate Fund 3, blackswanfund3.com. It has gone so well. So thank you so much to everyone in our community here live, listening on the replay. I think we're pretty close to about 17 million in commits. So we're doing really, really well. If you've already funded, obviously your spot is yours. If you've signed your paperwork and communicated to us your funding timeline, we will hold your spot for you. And then if you haven't yet signed your paperwork or you have a question about your funding timeline or something, please do get in touch with us because we're down to those last few spots. But we do have a few spots yet where paperwork hasn't been signed or someone hasn't communicated their funding timeline to us. So super successful launch. We launched it on Thursday and we'll basically be wrapping up, with all of our funding and everything in the next week or so. So very excited about that. And then that, of course, leads us into Black Swan Fund 4. So we have no time horizon for this. We don't know when this will come, but it inevitably will come eventually. So if you'd like to put your name on the wait list so that you have that early access, please do so. blackswanfund4.com, exactly the same as the waitlist for Fund 3. If I had to anticipate, I think it might be maybe less than a year, maybe right around a year, but again, who knows? Our focus is 100% on stewarding the capital in funds 1, 2, and 3 well. And then when the time is right, we'll turn our attention to Fund 4. So blackswanfund4.com for the waitlist there. And then super excited about our Community Power Hour in March. So this will be Monday, March 18th at 7:30 p.m. Central, our usual time for Community Power Hour. We're bringing in Greg Dickerson, who has served as our coach for several years now, and he is a real estate specific coach. So we've had many Community Power Hours over the last several months where we've been more mindset and growth focused, and very excited in March to go deep dive back into real estate. Greg is an expert at the markets, syndications, funds, new development, new construction, just on and on and on. He's doing deals all the time, coaches a lot of very large real estate players, so knows about deals that are happening all around the market. And basically he's going to come, we'll do a brief kind of interview so that people get to know him and hear about, some of his major stories. He's been investing for over 20 plus years. And then he's going to open the floor to what we call flash coaching. So people can just raise their hand and present their their real estate question, and he'll answer them. So that's a huge opportunity to be coached by someone who is 5 figures per year to be coached by. So super excited about that. Greg Dickerson for our March Community Power Hour, Monday, March 18th at 7:30 p.m. Central. And you can sign up on our calendar, blackswancalendar.com, and that puts all of our meetings on the calendar, our community power hours, our quarterly updates, state of the market, all the things that we do. That's all at blackswancalendar.com.
And we've got Real Estate Real Life 2024 coming up. That's in just a few months. We're getting our content ready, getting our ballroom, kind of details nailed down. We've got some fun exercises planned. So we have lots of props and decorations and stuff needed for those. We're unbelievably excited to host this conference. We'll do a day of intensive coaching, the mindset, practical stuff. The whole gamut, and then the next day we're going to get on a bus and go tour apartment buildings that y'all own if you're investors in fund 1, 2, or 3. So it's unlike any conference I've ever heard of, and we absolutely love to get a chance to see our investors face to face and for them to meet the assets that they own. So you can go to blackswanteam.com and go grab your ticket right now if you'd like to join us.
Absolutely, we're super excited about that. It'll be here before we know it. And then I believe this is our last update. So it's that time of year that folks are asking about the K1s. Fund 3, of course, will not have a K1 for 2023 because it didn't exist in 2023. But for our joint ventures, Fund 1 and Fund 2, this is an important update for you. From our perspective, we're ready to go to get the K1s out by the March 15th deadline in terms of the books all being ready to go and the paperwork being ready to go. However, something very exciting is underfoot, which is Congress is considering reinstating 100% bonus depreciation. You may remember that it was 100%, then it went down to 80%. Technically, in 2023, it should have been 60%. And they're considering reinstating 100% bonus depreciation and making that retroactive. So this would be very good for real estate investors. Absolutely because huge. There's very significant tax advantages there. However, as with many things in the United States government, they are going down to the wire. So it's expected that they're going to make that decision on March 8th. Well, if the deadline to release K1s is March 15th, that doesn't give enough time for all of those rules and specific calculations to promulgate through the systems, to get into tax software, all of the things. So our accountants are advising us not to send out K1s until this decision has been made, because the chances of having to send out amended K1s is essentially like 100%. And then that's very expensive for the partnership, very expensive if you yourself have filed your taxes with your own CPA. So we will wait until the government makes that decision on March 8th, and then our team will create those K1s with whatever those new guidelines are, which will likely be a reinstatement of 100% bonus depreciation. So all in all, very good news. It does mean that K1s are likely going to go out in early April. So just have that time frame in mind as you're thinking about whether or not to extend your own personal tax return. So very excited about that. Like 0% surprised that the government's waiting till the last minute. That's how they roll. But absolutely, we can't control that. We can only control what we control.
Lots of excitement for Fund 3 in the chat there. Tom had a question. He said he's asked a question, hasn't been able to get back from us. So apologize we've not gotten back to you, Tom. We're not ignoring you. We've just been on back-to-back phone calls, emails, and you do have some very detailed questions. So I promise that we will get an answer to you, but you have to triage when there's 10 people in line to ask a question, and the person says, hey, I need to reset my password to wire in the 100K. How do I do that? We have to prioritize that answer versus the one that's going to take us probably an hour to respond to. We promise we will get back to you here as soon as possible, and we appreciate everyone's excitement for Fund 3. It's been just an incredible launch here.
Absolutely.
Before we dive in here, I have a little surprise for you.
Oh.
I'll be right back.
Okay. Now y'all get to see that Nick does our community power hours in his gym shorts. Well, while he's talking about that, I guess I'll do our introduction, or maybe not. Oh, thank you. I'm a live plant. I love live plants. Thank you.
If you can get cut flowers or live plants, Elaine prefers live plants. So here's 2 varieties of plant I don't think we have in our house yet.
I don't think we do.
So
it even says X and O.
Oh.
Thank you.
Yes.
You're sweet and
My
funny.
pleasure.
You're sweet and funny.
if you're gonna give a gift, like make it special, right?
That's sweet.
When's the last time you proposed to your significant other? Just make the
You're
moment
sweet.
special in the way you can. So, yep.
Oh, well, now I'm like super blushing.
Yeah.
So we're Nick and Elaine. We have been married for, usually here we have our real estate stats, but here today we're talking about more personal stuff. So we have the stats about our family. So we've been married for about 12 years. We have 4 wonderful children, ages 8 and under. You can see those beauties there. We have Selah, Shepherd, Micah, and Abram. And then we run several businesses together. So we're on basically our 4th or 5th business together. We've been running businesses together since even before we were married. And now in Black Swan Real Estate, we work together all day. So a lot of people ask questions about that of like, what's it like to work with your spouse? And are you together 24 hours a day? And those sorts of things. So we'll talk about that. And I think one of the things that is certainly one of the greatest things about my life, I can't speak for Nick, but about my life is how good our marriage is and how much time and effort we spend on our marriage. I remember several years ago, probably 5 years ago, I thought our marriage was like a 9 out of 10. Like when I looked at it objectively, I'm like, I think we have a pretty good marriage.
One of the strongest areas of our, life, if you look at, health or spirituality or wealth or whatever, is one of the strongest areas of our life.
Absolutely. And then we, at that time, we decided to double and even triple down on spending even more effort on our marriage, which is somewhat counterintuitive, right? When something's going really well in your life, it might seem like, okay, well, that area is doing well. I'll spend my focus on these other things. But we knew we were growing our lives in terms of having more children. We knew that we were making bigger and bigger decisions in the business. And we felt like if we really spent a ton of focus on improving our marriage, that would pay dividends. And so then we discovered that, we were kind of ranking our marriage on like a scale of 1 to 10. And it was just like this mindset shift of like, oh, well, the scale is actually out of 100. There's this like whole extra level.
Whoa, 100.
And I'm sure there will be levels above that.
I thought we were going to 20.
No, we're going to 100 and above that and above that. And so that's what we're presenting tonight, is basically the mindset shift stuff that we went through probably about 4 or 5 years ago that really up-leveled our marriage, that really changed the way we think about each other, we communicate with each other. And then that has percolated into most of our relationships, our friendships, our business relationships, because this way of communicating and connecting with another human is obviously deeply applicable in the relationship that you're closest to, but it applies to all humans. So super excited to present that for you tonight.
So, it's kind of painful, but one of the most common questions that we get when we're on the phone with an investor, and I mean, between Elaine and I, we've probably done 50 investor phone calls here in the last weekend since the fund launched. But one of the most common questions we get is not, what asset do we buy or what market do we invest in, but how do I get my spouse on board with this? How do I convince my spouse to invest? Sometimes someone will even say, like, kind of jokingly, but not jokingly, like, how do I trick my spouse into letting me invest? How do I trick my spouse into letting me invest? How sad is that? How unfortunate is that the most important relationship in your life is holding you back, is preventing you from this thing that you want to do. And it doesn't have to be real estate investing, obviously, right? It could be anything, but money is a thing that, in the United States, certainly it's cited as like a reason for divorce or whatever, but money is not good or evil. It just amplifies who you are and represents what your values are. If you want to know what someone's values are, look at their calendar and look at their bank account. Where's their time going and where's their money going? And I'll tell you what their values are. So when someone's contemplating a big financial decision, that's when these things really come to a head. Maybe there's a tension, a push-pull there somewhere, and it really comes to a head when someone's contemplating making a big investing decision. And so a huge portion, probably a majority of the time that Elaine and I spend on a lot of these kind of investor calls or just kind of one-on-one coaching sessions and stuff, it tends to gravitate towards someone's relationship with their spouse. It's the thing that gives you the most juice, that moves the needle the most. We're going to equip you with some really powerful tools today. So we need to set a ground rule here. These tools could be used for good or for evil, so to speak. You could use these tools to manipulate your spouse or other people in your life that you care about. But I'll warn you that humans are very good lie detectors. They're very good authenticity detectors. And if you use these principles selfishly, if you use them selfishly instead of selflessly, people will see that. They'll see the inauthentic you and they'll be repulsed by it. In fact, it is impossible to influence someone while you are judging them. It's impossible to influence someone while you're judging them. So we encourage you to stay out of judgment and to stay in curiosity as we talk about these things, especially with the people that you love the most. You might have some judgment that you harbor in your heart because kind of their deepest, darkest secrets or their vulnerabilities or their weaknesses, and you might quietly sit in judgment about them for those things. And we're going to give you some really powerful tools that I hope can break you out of that judgment. And if you can push yourself, pull yourself, just stretch yourself into curiosity, then and only then do you have the real opportunity to influence them, whether that's to take the next step in your investment journey, go on vacation, whatever that is. But it can only be done from a place of sincere curiosity, love, and service.
I'll be hopelessly transparent and say one of the big breakthroughs we had, say that 4 or 5 year time period, year ago time period when things really up leveled in our marriage, is I was very judgmental of Nick. There, I said it. I was like, Nick, you walk too fast, you talk too fast, you have all these crazy ideas, you're like light years ahead of other people, just all of these like just really like very negative judgments. And imagine being in a committed long-term legal relationship with someone, and every single day they're like, you walk too fast, you talk too fast, your ideas are good, but they're crazy, all the things. And then doing business with them and children and all of the things. And I just had this like breakthrough where I said, you know what? I love him. I married him. I'm 100% committed to him. I'm not changing that. We have these kids together. We have this home life together. We have these businesses together. And so anything I do that is in judgment of him just stifles him. And instead, I should praise what I really love and maybe not give much energy to the things that I don't like, because some of them, like, I'll never change. And some of them he might say, hey, I notice, you don't mention this or whatever, but you really like when I do this. And then I can say, well, I do, I talk about the behaviors I like, and the behaviors I don't like, I just sort of ignore. And that like supercharged our whole relationship. And really was when like the business really grew, because Nick had these crazy ideas, right? Like if y'all have seen our private equity fund, it's not standard. And for years, he's like, I have these crazy ideas. And I'm like, no one will believe that, or no one will like that, or we just have to go with, the typical model. And then when I stepped back and said, wow, like I'm really judging you. And instead, if I just magnify you and love you and lean into it, I bet really good things will come of that. And that alone, like if you just leave now, like you have heard the thing that really took our marriage to the next level, is basically just looking at your beloved and saying, I love you and I'm committed to you. And of course you're going to have behaviors I don't like, right? That's human nature. If there's nothing about your beloved that bothers you, you're probably not spending enough time with them. And just leaning into it and saying, I will be the person in your universe that is completely non-judgmental of you, that just loves you completely unconditionally. And it totally changed everything for us.
I really appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, that was my extra little bonus.
It goes both ways, by the way. So if you're the partner on that, if the shoe's on that foot, I remember that feeling when you made that choice. I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. And I remember you saying, I'm gonna support you. I'm gonna lean into this. I'm gonna be vulnerable and say, I'm worried that there won't be any breaks. I said, well, baby, you love having a big life. We're going to do all kinds of crazy stuff. It's going to be a ton of fun. We're going to have this big, awesome life. And you said, no, not no BREAKS, no BRAKES.
Mm-hmm.
It really dawned on me like how much I was probably harming my wife by pushing these crazy ideas out there, probably over the top to try to compromise and meet in the middle to kind of get what I wanted. And I was probably scaring the hell out of her. And I remember that's when you became our chief risk officer. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay, well, you get like a veto on everything. So I really honor your willingness to just like lean in, and I need to honor your ability to be wiser than me and to be the chief risk officer. A fun exercise you can try. Maybe you've seen this before. So if you put your hand up, like what are you doing?
Pushing back. Pushing back so I don't fall off the screen.
When you put up resistance, like your partner can't help but put up resistance.
Mm-hmm.
But when you lean in, when you really love and support your spouse and love them for who they are, like they can't help but do the same. Like, wouldn't it be more fun to dance?
Thank you for my plants.
Yes.
I love them. I'm excited.
All right.
Infinite Game. We need to like meet Simon Sinek. If any of y'all have connections
We
to
met Chris
him,
Voss.
we did meet Chris Voss.
We gave him a cornucopia of Black Swan swag.
We're halfway there. You guys know we talk about Infinite Game. If you haven't heard it before and this is your first time, perk up your ears. This is a life-changing concept. If you have not yet read this book, you must. I count this in the top probably 3 books ever that I've read. And it applies to everything. It applies to relationships with your spouse, your coworkers, your parents, business relationships, negotiations in the community, politics, all the things. It's basically the idea that a finite game is like the Super Bowl. We agree that there's a certain number of players on the field, there's a set of rules, we're going to play a certain amount of time, and the players with the most amount of points at the end wins. If there's a tie at that time, there's an overtime period, again with a set of rules, and then eventually whoever has the most points wins, the game's over, and you go on your merry way. An infinite game, it's all variables. It's an unlimited number of players. There's no defined set of rules. The point of the game is not to win the game, it's to stay in the game and to perpetuate the game and to have your friends playing the game with you so that you can just continue to do whatever the game is. If it's a relationship, you stay in that relationship. If it's a business, you keep that business alive so that you can keep serving your customers, changing the economy, changing the community. And it's just such a expansive way of thinking. I think, particularly in modern culture, in Western culture, and particularly in this like last, 10 years where we've just become so divided. There's this idea that there's like winners and losers in every single situation, like even stuff that doesn't matter. And in fact, we have this feeling of like, oh, well, you're either on the winning team or the losing team. And if you're on the team opposite of mine, we can't be friends. We can't communicate. And the infinite game is the opposite of all of that. It's all about staying in relationship, staying in the activity of whatever the game is, bringing other people into the game, making the game better for everyone involved. And it's such a life-changing way of thinking about being in relation to other humans. Highly recommend it. It will change your marriage. It will change your relationships with your parents, your children, your coworkers. Totally changes your way of thinking. And then from this perspective, how you communicate with someone else, and particularly how you resolve conflict with someone else, is totally different, because it's not about being right or winning that little battle. It's about staying in relationship with them and making the relationship as good as possible.
So let's get meta for just a second. What is communication? We're talking about, technique, skills, approaches in communication, improving your communication, particularly with your significant other. Communication is not that abstract. It's a meeting of the minds. You're exchanging language, written, spoken, nonverbal language, whatever it is, to agree on something, to come in alignment on something. I would argue that communication is the art of careful, deliberate, considerate, sincere listening, and a tireless search for value. Now that might be kind of an unusual definition there, but I think that's very much the case. And good communication is always win-win, never win-lose. I remember when one of our mentors started a meeting with me, and I sat down and she sat down, and she said, "What did you hope to achieve today in our conversation? What did you hope to achieve today in our conversation?" No one ever asked me a question like that before. To this day, I try to start as many conversations as I possibly can with that high quality question. Or I might say, what can I do to give you the maximum amount of value today? So often we engage in conversation that is pure triviality or waiting for our turn to speak. Or, heck, let's say it is truly waiting for your turn to speak and you really want to share a great story, celebrate some great moment you just had. Like, just tell them that, hey, I really want to tell you this great story. I don't want you to talk. I want you to just listen to me talk. I have this thing I want to share right now. Like, how much more beautiful could your communication be if it's done with intentionality? I think most people don't stop for a moment and just ask themselves, why am I in communication with this person? Most of the communication that you engage with on a daily basis, I fear, is probably very ineffective because you have a different objective than the person that you're communicating with. You're not in agreement about the purpose of that communication even existing. And that might sound abstract, But I challenge you for the next week in every conversation, no matter how trivial, just ask, what can I do to provide value with you in provide value to you in this conversation, or what did you hope to achieve in this conversation? It might skip a beat. It might be awkward just for a split second, and then I promise you, your counterparty in that communication, they'll go, "Wow, man, I mean, I got to be honest. I actually don't want to be communicating right. Like it'll blow you away the different agendas that people walk into with a conversation, and you'll be blown away at how little time you need to spend in communication to get huge outcomes, to get high value outcomes once you are deliberate about searching for value, about sincere listening, about being considerate with your counterpart in communication. Why are we talking so much about communication? That's because communication is the most valuable thing that you do, the most valuable thing that you do. There's the Pareto distribution, the 80-20, but there's an 80-20 of an 80-20, and then there's an 80-20 of an 80-20. If you multiply that out, there's less than 1% of all of your outcomes. More of your activities result in approximately 50% of your outcomes. That might sound a little bit crazy, but it's absolutely true.
Can you say it again,
Yeah.
since you kind of stumbled, because
right.
it's so powerful. The 80-20 of the 80-20 of the 80-20 results in
So less than 1% or approximately 1% of all your actions result in about half of all of your outcomes. 1% of your actions gives you half of all your outcomes, which sounds a little absurd. Like, oh, well, I'm a W-2 employee. I need to go work my 40 hours per week. Oh, really? I mean, does your boss really pay you to punch the clock, or do they pay you for outcomes? Were there a few moments last year that really saved the day where like you demonstrated your value to the organization? And time with your spouse, where did most of the value come from? There's a good chance it was moments of intimacy, of physical intimacy, moments when you were there for them, when it really mattered, when they had like a surgical procedure and you were there the moment they opened their eyes. With your kids, when you were there at that dance recital, when the other parent couldn't make it. There's just a few moments that give you all of the outcomes, and almost all of them you're communicating. You're communicating verbally, non-verbally with someone, and that gives you your outcome. So if you focus on this, I promise you that you will get it's possible to 10x your outcomes in life by adding just 1% to your actions, by focusing on the actions that have the greatest possible impact.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that I have really done over the last many years is I think a lot about my thinking. I think a lot about my communication. And in the beginning, I won't sugarcoat it, that is an extra like soundtrack running in your mind, and it can take a little bit of effort. But eventually, after say 2 or 3 months, it becomes very effortless, and you're just like fine tuning your communication at all times and thinking about what does the other party need and how can I meet their needs and how can I stay out of judgment? How can I stay in curiosity? And going back a few slides when we were talking about staying out of judgment, 2 phrases that will completely change your life is stay out of judgment and stay in curiosity, asking questions, thinking through things, wondering what another perspective is. That will totally change how you communicate with your own self and with everyone around you. A way to stay in curiosity is this idea of the third alternative. This comes from Stephen Covey in the book, The 8th Habit. So there was the 7 habits for highly effective people, and then the 8th habit, which like really brings it home. And it's basically the idea that in communication, we often believe that there's 2 sides. There's an A and a B, a black and a white, an up and a down, whatever it is. And in reality, there are almost always many more situations than that. This is closely akin to what another one of our dear mentors, Tony Robbins, says, which is anytime you think you have a dilemma, you're wrong. There's at least 3 options for any problem out there. And the person who can come up with more potential solutions for any problem or situation is likely to have better outcomes, is likely to have a better life. So the third alternative is asking, are you willing to go for a solution that is better than any of us have come up with yet? So if you're in communication with someone, and I mean, let's just think of something silly. You and your spouse are in that super dreadful conversation where it's like, what do we have for dinner? And neither of you really wants to think about it. Both of you miraculously want the food to just appear. And so one of you's like, I don't know, how about spaghetti? And the other's like, I don't know, how about Chinese food? and you're like, I don't know. And then there's like this battle of wills. And instead asking, are we willing to go for a solution that's better than anything that we have come up with? Like a third alternative is something completely different, something that is not A and B. It's not it's A and B, and then you go to numbers. It's one, two, and three. So it might be something like, you know what? Maybe we should go for a walk for 30 minutes and catch up with each other, shake off some of this energy, maybe work up an appetite. And then when we come back, it might be more obvious to us, what we want for dinner. Maybe we just have a really light dinner tonight of some olives and crackers and fruit. So that's an example of a third alternative at a really simple level. And you can imagine that when in that situation, like neither party was super wed to one of those options. But imagine if the parties are truly opposed to each other. So the example that Covey gives in the book when he's describing the third alternative is two people are sharing an office. And person one opens the window. And person two keeps going over and closing the window. And it becomes this like battle of the wills, right? I'm sure you've been in a relationship before where like the tension, the quiet tension just keeps escalating and escalating and escalating. And person A is thinking, I'm just really hot in here. I just need some air to come through. And person B is thinking, every time that window's open, my papers get blown everywhere and I'm allergic to pollen. So I'm just, I'm sneezing, all the things. And instead, if they come together and they communicate about what their needs are, about what the ultimate behavior is that the need that they're trying to solve with the behavior of opening the window, they can find out that, well, it turns out person A is hot and wants some airflow, and person B is concerned that the wind is blowing around and they're allergic to pollen. And so maybe they close the window and they bring in a small box fan or a small little portable air conditioner, and then everyone's needs are met. So that's an example of a third alternative. It's not, is the window closed or is the window open? It's how can we stay out of judgment of the person that we're in this communication with, or even in this disagreement with, stay in curiosity, look for solutions that are completely different than anything that we're considering, and find something that serves everyone's needs better. So this is the exact opposite of compromise. This is not, well, you eat spaghetti and I'll eat Chinese food and we'll sit next to each other. If you enjoy that, by all means do it. But the situation I'm trying to present here is like you're just kind of in stagnation. And it's not, well, we'll crack the window an inch and then neither of us are actually happy. This is coming up with something that's totally different so that you meet the needs of the parties in a way that's unprecedented with the original options. Super powerful idea, changes your whole way of thinking. Like it becomes nearly impossible to get into a disagreement with almost anyone, because you're basically just asking yourself, well, what have I not thought of yet? Well, what's another way that I could meet their needs? Well, what's a piece of information I don't have yet that might help me solve this puzzle or meet their needs? And that it just becomes impossible to get into resistance. We are just firing. I love it. I love it. This is what makes us, this is what gets us up in the morning. This is what makes us passionate, is connecting with other humans, being in good, high quality relationships in our own marriage and our friendships with our kids, teaching people about this, because this stuff has changed our lives.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. I'm in this legal correspondence with someone right now with a counterparty in property management. You get into all sorts of really low level, low energy, legal nonsense. And I started typing up like this bullet point response, and I saw myself, I'm like, this is really low quality communication. So I just typed out, what is it that you're trying to achieve here? If you've typed out this long bolted point list, for legal review, like it's clear you're trying to achieve something, but I can't figure out what it is. Can you please tell me what it is that you want? Because I really want to help you get it. That's going to save me a ton of time if I just help you get what you want. So that's the third alternative at work right there. It almost always is stepping back and saying, what can we do to just create a universe where we all get what we want? 3 dimensions of relationship. This is a really powerful concept. This is maybe a little bit of a challenging concept for masculine listeners that are on the line here. I'd say it's an easier concept for feminine energy to understand, but you might hear this called 3 levels of relationship. There's different flavors of it. 3 dimensions of relationship. First dimension is egocentric. It's all about me. You only care about what you get out of the relationship. And there's times when a level 1 relationship is totally appropriate, healthy. So let's say you have a baby as the icon there suggests, it's totally okay for the baby to be all about the baby in that relationship. And hopefully one day they grow up. We've got, 4 children, 8 and under. So we're hoping that they grow up and it's not all about them. Our older children, it's beautiful watching their souls come alive and they move to higher level relationships here. But, in your day-to-day life, let's say you go to a bank teller and you're trying to, get, money from the bank. It's very okay for that relationship to be about you, isn't it? Yep, I need to get my money out of the bank, and that's it. A level 2 relationship is all about equality, or it's an ethnocentric relationship. I'll take care of me, and you take care of you, and we will try to take care of each other. And it's really tragic because a lot of people perceive a level 2 relationship to be kind of like the paragon of relationships. This is an area where American culture is really, challenged right now. You see this, in the media or on the news all the time because so many people believe that a level 2 relationship, that's as good as it gets. And if you aren't in a level 2 relationship, then you're out of bliss. You're out of the most optimal paradigm. And a lot of times, a level 2 relationship is better than a level 1 relationship. Like if you're in a level 1 relationship with your spouse, that's probably not a great thing, right? There probably should be give and take and some compromise, and you should be able to mutually care for each other. But there's another level there. That's a level 3 relationship. It's a spirit-centric relationship. And in a level 3 relationship, you take total responsibility for the way the other person feels. You will not stop or give up for any reason until you meet your partner's needs. So you take full responsibility for the feelings of your partner, which sounds a little crazy in Western culture. So Eastern culture, it agrees with this concept a little more. But in Western culture, we might say like, well, you have to have a thick skin. How could you possibly be responsible for the feelings of the people around you? But let's do a little role play. Let's say we're driving down the road here. So I'm driving, or no, you're passengering. There we go. Yeah.
Only one person drives.
Unless it's a driver's ed car or something like that. Well, all right. So we're quietly fuming about some petty dispute, like Elaine thought that we left the stove on, and I was certain that we didn't leave the stove on. And I'm feeling quite smug over here as we're driving to our destination. I'm probably speeding a little bit because I feel so smug that I know I'm right, that the oven wasn't left on, and I refuse to go back and check. And Elaine's pissed off that I'm feeling smug. But in my heart of hearts, do I really feel good right now? At some point, whatever positive feelings I'm experiencing, they will pass. We'll probably arrive at our destination, and I'll say, man, this is going to be a really awkward dinner party for us to hang out at while we work through this petty disagreement.
I'm worried our house is going to burn down.
That's right.
We have a gas stove.
That's right. The funny thing is, Elaine's probably right in this role play. When you really love someone, when you are in a marriage with someone or any close relationship, the fact of the matter is, if they're unhappy, you're unhappy. If they're unhappy, you're unhappy. So a level 3 relationship is all about taking extreme ownership for your world around you and just accept the fact that if you fail to take responsibility for your spouse's feelings, really what you're doing is you're failing to care for yourself. If you light them up, if you do everything you can to set them on fire, like you are going to feel that uplift in every molecule of your soul. And this is the reality of the situation. And it could be easy to live in a level 2 relationship with your spouse. It's hard to step up and to say, you know what, so I was actually doing a coaching thing earlier today with someone, and they have separate finances from their spouse, which is pretty common. And I said, okay, so why do you have separate finances? And they said, well, she just wants to keep it separate. I'll bring it up from time to time, but it's clearly like a sensitive thing. I'm like, okay, do you have like a gambling addiction? Do you disrespect money, or is she more financially conservative than you are? He's like, well, I don't think so. I might even be kind of more, conservative than she is, but no, I think we're very much on the same page there. And I said, okay, well, have you ever asked her why she's sensitive about that? Because she'll escalate when he asks about it. And he's like, oh, well, I mean, I know that her folks had a really bad problem with money their whole life. So do you think that's it? I don't know. Maybe it could be. Maybe she saw this drama play out in her family, and so she wants to keep their finances separate. Even though she loves and trusts her husband, she still has this weight on her heart. And so I said, you're failing your wife. You are failing your wife. You need to take responsibility for her feelings. You need to step in and step up and resolve this hurt within her. And when you do that, everything else is going to take care of itself. This whole separate money thing, this is a distraction. This is a second, third order consequence of a much deeper hurt. And if you don't address it, it's going to manifest itself in a much more powerful way. And yeah, create some logistical idiosyncrasies in your relationship where like she pays the mortgage and he pays the utility bills and they have to do some petty accounting. But what happens when they lead a bigger life? Can they even lead a bigger life when they're trapped in that paradigm? I don't know. Maybe they can, but it's going to be a huge impediment. Does that make sense to y'all? How right now they are living in a level 2 relationship, which is a beautiful thing, but one or both of them could decide at a moment's notice to step into a level 3 relationship, and it's going to be hard. It's going to take effort. It's going to be painful to take on the painful feelings of your spouse. But if you do it, all the problems can melt away effortlessly when you live in a level 3 relationship. Does that make sense to y'all? I hope.
It makes sense to me. We have a good question that I think is the number one thing that people ask about. So Victoria, thank you for bringing this up. How do you avoid codependency in the unhealthy sense in a level 3 relationship? So thank you for queuing up that question, because it's the number one question people ask about of like, okay, I can sort of see how that would work, but what about this or what about that? Or so how would you address that?
So, we've got, I think, a pretty sharp audience here of, healthcare providers. I think that you all know what health looks like, what healthy relationships look like. And so if you are, going out and buying, KFC buckets for your obese partner, if you're buying, liquor bottles for your alcoholic partner, or drugs for your drug abuse partner, and I'm sorry if I'm bringing up any wounds here with those examples, but if you're doing explicitly unhealthy things to try to bring pleasure to your partner, but ultimately leave a hole in their soul, you are harming them. You are harming them. You're behaving selfishly. Because the hard thing would be to say, hey, baby, I think you're in a pretty unhealthy spot, and I refuse to help you hurt yourself. It takes strength to live in a level 3 relationship. I would actually argue that a codependent relationship is a level 2 relationship. You're probably actually meeting some need that you have from some childhood trauma that you may not even think about by facilitating someone else's unhealthy lifestyle, habit, activity, whatever it is. You're actually meeting your need so that they can meet their need in a level 2 relationship. If you decide to live in a level 3 relationship, you're going to do the hard thing. You're going to step in and say, listen, this is meeting some need that you have, but it's creating a hole in your soul, and I refuse to let that persist.
Very, very good question.
Yes, excellent question.
All right. Next up is, what is a black swan? So we'll go quickly through this since we spent so much time on the 3 dimensions of a relationship. But we love to talk about this, right? It's why we named our company what we did. And basically, a black swan is the one thing that changes everything. It's the piece of information that changes the trajectory of the conversation. And you find it by staying in curiosity, by asking questions, by being genuinely interested in the other party, not in an interrogation sense, but just true, genuine connection of, I want to get to know you, I want to understand your needs, tell me more about that. A great example that we've shared several times is one of the buildings that we are working on acquiring. We've been working on it for years. There's 2 partners, unmarried man and a woman, and they owned an apartment building together for many, many years. And the male partner did much of the work of the operations of that apartment. And since the apartment was listed for transacting, and in talking with the seller after probably hours, we found out that the reason they were selling is because the male partner had passed away, and the female partner did not quite know how to manage the apartment. She basically had been the financial part of the transaction, but hadn't been involved in operations. That's an example of a black swan. With that piece of information, we can serve that person's need so much of, okay. So, from that perspective, probably something like ease of closing is a simpler, that's what you need versus, say, like top line price or, a certain due diligence period, like what specific need can I help you meet by understanding that black swan piece of information? So to find the black swan, you go at least 3 layers deep. It can sometimes be deeper, but you just keep asking. You just keep saying, tell me more about that, or help me understand that, or what do you mean when you say this? so many times in our human communication, we say the same word and we think that we mean the same thing, but we actually have very different definitions of it. The English language is so beautiful because it's so complex, but at times it can be a very simple question of, well, what do you mean when you use the word contract? Like, we would think that that's a word that's well defined, but it's not. So that's a black swan. And when you find it, you instantly know it and it changes everything. We love that concept so much.
So a lot of people think that they need to negotiate with their spouse. Ugh, that's a rough spot to be in. I don't think that you negotiate with your spouse. I don't think you negotiate with a lot of people in your life. I think that you just try really hard to meet people's needs. The example of walking into a conversation saying, "What did you hope to achieve in this conversation?" That's seeking out to meet people's needs in the most kind of basic, immediate sense. We were just talking about a level 3 relationship and how you have to step up, you have to lead, you have to serve, you have to give. These are not negotiations. I think people have a very pejorative, feeling that comes over them when they hear the word negotiate. We ultimately serve people at the highest level when we seek to communicate to get into level 3 relationship. We build rapport. There's lots of techniques that we'll teach about, in different webinars for building rapport, mirroring. And ultimately, when you give, you get. There's a great book, Give and Take.
By Adam Grant.
Yes. When you put yourself out there, when you love and serve and give to people, like avalanches of abundance will just wash over you. It's unstoppable. And when you're truly dedicated to serving people in a purely selfless way, you will experience a richness in your life, in your day-to-day communications, and particularly with your spouse. When you try to serve them like crazy, like, you will get everything you could ever possibly want from that relationship. So I would encourage you to avoid negotiation at all costs and to just love people, serve, lead, give, and ultimately you will get everything you could possibly want.
Some fun homework to build rapport is 36 Questions in Love. You can find it at 36questionsinlove.com. I believe it was created by the New York Times, and it's a set of 36 questions that build in emotional intensity. So you want to go through them in the order that they're written there. And the way they basically describe it is, it's a set of questions that you would do with someone, say, on like a second or third date. But I promise you, you can do it at any time. You could be married to someone for 50, 60 years, and you will find out something new about them. Nick and I have done these questions, gosh, probably 5 or 6 times, over the years of being married, because things change, where, our experiences change, our emotional perceptions of things change. It's really fun. If you don't yet have plans for Valentine's Day, I highly encourage you to incorporate this in. There's some of them that are a little obviously geared toward an intimate partner, but probably a good 32 or 33 of them are even a ton of fun to do with like a completely platonic friends. Like, get some girlfriends together and go over these, over coffee or something, and you will learn so much more about that person. 36 Questions in Love. When you ask people about their human experience and you really listen, that is so rare in today's world. We get all these pings and these quick connections with each other on social media, but we get very little true, deep connection about the things that really matter. 36 Questions in Love will get you there in 10 or 15 minutes. It's so good.
So that concludes the first half of our presentation. We're right on schedule.
I think we're a little ahead of schedule. It's good.
I am so proud of us.
So now we're shifting into basically more discussion around specifically masculine and feminine energies, which does apply to, again, all relationships, not just necessarily, I'm laughing because Rachel said, I'm proud of you too. Rachel, you're supposed to be enjoying your night off, my friend. You're so sweet. So obviously the people that you're in relationship with, whether it's a coworker, your parents, friends, they all have masculine and feminine energy. So we're going to talk about this from the perspective of just those energies and how we carry them in our human bodies, and then particularly in our intimate relationships. So first of all, it's really important to note that we are wired differently for a reason. And going back to, I think, one of our very first slides, we talked about how you cannot influence someone while you are judging them. So we're going to say some things that might raise the hairs on the back of your neck, or your brain might instantly offer to you a thought of, well, that's not true, or that sounds awfully 1950s, or those sorts of things. And the thing I would ask you humbly from my heart is just listen with an open mind, with a beginner's mind, see it through to the end of our time, and see if some of this stuff actually does make sense. And some of the layers that we have brought on to masculine and feminine energies, particularly feminine energies in our culture, if we peel those away, there's really a lot of beauty here. And there's really a lot of opportunity for all people, I think particularly people with feminine energy, to step into that energy and to enjoy it and to not feel as though they have to hide it or shield behind masculine energy, and instead to see it for the superpower that it is. So that's my sort of request, is come at this with a beginner's mind, stay open-minded to it. We are wired differently for a reason, and that's okay. In our culture in the last, say 10 years, we've moved toward like removing all markers of gender or sexual identity, and just trying to make everything completely equal. And of course, we want that in terms of access and pay and voting rights and all of those things. Those things are a given in our conversation here. But in terms of our wiring, of how we think about the world, how we interpret information, it's different, and that's good, because when there's multiple different perspectives looking at a situation, you can see more of the situation for what it really is. So anything you want to add here?
Well, we have this fun photo. This is one of my favorite photos here for talking about polarity. We're wired this way for reasons. So, I'm a person of faith and a person of science, and if we just teleport ourselves back a few thousand years to caveman and cavewoman, we've got this graphic of caveman here dying for his family, and we are wired differently because we have different roles to fulfill when it matters most. When that bear attacks, my job is to go out spear in hand and to die for my family, and my wife's job is to find a caveman that's willing to die for her, that's willing to die for his family. And there's very asymmetric and very virtuous roles that these play. Everyone has within them masculine and feminine power. So, a woman has the ability to pick up a spear and fend off that bear, but that's not necessarily what she was put on this earth to do. That's the second resort. It's women and children first. I would be very embarrassed to be the man jumping in the lifeboat. Like that's an affront to my soul. That's not what I was put on this earth to do. And so, there's lots of ways you could think about this. Where we, made this way? Did we evolve this way? It doesn't matter. What matters is that we're different and we're wired differently for a reason. And when you just lean into that reality, you can lead a really, really beautiful, happy existence as a result.
Absolutely. So let's talk about feminine and masculine energies. Do you want to do one and then the other, or do you want to go back and forth?
Ooh, so masculine energy is thinking, and then you would like sound off or something like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So feminine energy, again, these are broad generalizations. Obviously, not all of this is true 100% of the time, but I think you'll sense as we're going through these that these feel aligned to you. Feminine energy tends to be very feeling.
Masculine energy tends to be thinking. That oven's definitely not left on, even though it probably is.
Feminine energy tends to be very situationally aware. That also might be called diffuse attention. So kind of knowing what's going on in here, and also having an ear for what's happening in the next office, and also remembering that this appointment is happening over here, and thinking about this friend said this yesterday and I need to follow up with her. That's what situationally aware is, or diffuse attention. That's feminine energy.
And masculine energy is a laser focused freight train on a very specific course. So it's very singularly focused.
Feminine energy wants to be understood. So kind of the old stereotype here is a masculine and a feminine partner talking at the end of the day. The feminine partner starts to talk about something that happened at work. The masculine partner jumps in with a solution, and the feminine partner storms off in the room and starts crying. That's confusing to the masculine partner of like, I was trying to help you. I was trying to solve your problem. Feminine energy doesn't necessarily want a solution. They want to be understood.
And masculine energy could care less about being understood. It just wants to be respected and appreciated. So words of affirmation, incredibly powerful to masculine energy. And if you start trying to dig into masculine energy's feelings, that's going to be a very counterproductive exercise. It just wants to be appreciated for what it does and what it is.
Feminine energy wants to experience love. I'll also throw out here that in the financial sense, feminine energy often wants to experience financial security.
And masculine energy likes financial freedom. Freedom is like oxygen to masculine energy. We might be on a call with like a husband and a wife on separate calls, and they might, feel like they're on a completely separate page. One says, "Oh, well, my husband just wants to be able to go do whatever he wants, and I just want my family to be safe and to be provided for." Well, really, they want the exact same thing, don't they? They're just two separate sides of the same coin. Masculine energy loves freedom.
Feminine energy wants to make small things big. I'm chuckling here because when Nick has a conversation that for whatever reason I'm not able to be a part of, say like a negotiation or something that happens on a phone call and I'm not a part of it, I'm like, okay, but then what happened? Okay, but what did their voice sound like? How long did they pause in between the words that they said? And he's like, I don't know. We're going to have a signed purchase agreement tomorrow. And I'm like, well, I know, but what did they say? And to your credit, you used to just like, Elaine, I'm too busy. I'm not talking about that. And now I think you know the questions I'm going to ask, and you like give me the play by play. And then like 2 or 3 questions in, I'm like, okay, we're good. Like, I just want to make sure that you understood the other party.
That's right. And your partner probably is going to push you. These different polarities. They can have what appear to be oppositional desires or needs, and you might say, well, how can we meet each other's needs? For the most part, all your partner needs to know is that you want to meet their needs. The moment that Elaine gets the sense that I'm happy to tell her whatever she wants to know, she doesn't need to know anything at all. She just needed to know that I was willing to share that with her. That's the case with almost all of these.
That's a level 3 relationship.
That's right. Absolutely. So feminine energy likes to make things big, and masculine energy likes things make things small. This is one of the most common disagreements or points of contention that we see in marriages, because this is a problem-solving algorithm, is it not? So masculine energy will make a problem smaller, and if it can't, it will just ignore it until it becomes big enough that you have to do something about it. And feminine energy will tend to make a small problem bigger in order to bring focus to it and to solve the problem before it actually becomes so big that it's a menace. And in different circumstances, those can both be completely reasonable problem-solving algorithms, but they are nonetheless opposite problem-solving algorithms. So very often when Elaine is like, Nick, I don't feel so good about this situation. Are you doing something about that? I'm like, it's not a big deal, babe. I got this. That's not what she wants to hear, right? She wants to hear, all right, let's focus on this. I got this.
Here's my checklist.
That's right. Yep.
Here are the 99 things I've considered.
I'm going to be laser focused on this until you tell me that this is satisfied to your liking, right? But then the moment she feels that energy, all of a sudden those feelings, they evaporate. So just recognize that feminine energy likes to make problems bigger to solve them, and masculine energy likes to make problems smaller to solve them.
Feminine energy wants to be owned. That's probably one of those things when I said a few minutes ago that you're going to hear some things you're like, I don't know about that. No human wants to be owned. What does that mean? When we think about our evolutionary heritage, feminine people are smaller, weaker, run a little slower. None of those are positive or negative. It just is what it is. And so feminine beings in all of the animal kingdom have to either hide, flee, or rely on stronger, often masculine parties for protection. That's not necessarily the case in 2024 in modern society, where we have civilized society and cars and security systems and locks and those sorts of things. But it's wired into our DNA that we instinctually know that we are the weaker party. Say if you're out walking in the late at night, a feminine person is much more likely to be aware of her surroundings than a masculine person who's probably feels pretty okay and is just walking along. So wanting that protection from the tribe, from an individual person that they're in a relationship with, that's what that means by feminine energy wants to be owned.
And masculine energy likes to conquer and ultimately likes to own and to be free. And these might seem like these could be opposite desires, but they're beautifully complementary desires. I had this incredible experience. I was in Ecuador, which is a not very safe country, and I was there for like a couple of weeks. And getting towards the end of the trip, I realized, man, I feel like it's actually pretty safe here. I don't know. And everywhere we went, there was this really intense conversation between like our tour guide and a local policeman. And as we got to the end of the trip, I asked our guide, like, why are the police always talking to you? What does what are you all talking about? And here's what that conversation looks like. So in this role play, I am the policeman, and Elaine is our tour guide. So Hello,
Hi.
Elaine.
Yeah.
My name is Officer Nick.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen you with these Americans.
Yeah, I'm their tour guide.
You own them,
I
and
do.
I own you. Do you understand?
I will keep them safe.
If something happens to them, I will find you. I know you live in this place. Do you understand?
I do.
Thank you.
See you later.
Just probably once or twice or three times a day, a policeman would see us with our tour guide and would just approach our tour guide and make sure that he owned us and that he understood that he owned us. And without knowing what was going on, I felt that. I just felt safe. I felt like we were, whitewater rafting in the Amazon rainforest. We were scuba diving in the Galapagos the whole time. I was never alone. Someone owned me. And that's all anybody wants. Like when I go to the gym and I'm with my trainer, I can turn my brain off. All I have to do is just do what he tells me to do, and I'm going to be fit and healthy. And like he can run the show. It's a beautiful feeling. This speaks to Dr. DeStefano said it's an interesting dance. I look back at how much my husband and I have a mixture in these things flip flop. So you don't live in one energy or the other all the time. You can go back and forth. Like I'm loving my feminine energy when I'm lifting heavy weights at the gym because I'm not the person in charge. I just have to go with the person who owns me. And when you are being intimate, you're almost always in alignment with what your kind of gender at birth probably was. Not always, and it can be fun to flip flop there too. But just realize that we have both of these energies within us, and they come out in those ways when we're at our most passionate. And if we live in denial of that, we live in denial of the thing that gives us the most juice ultimately. Yeah.
Feminine energy is stimulated by praise.
And masculine energy is stimulated by challenge.
And then kind of these last three tend to go together a little bit. So feminine energy gathers, hangs on, and remembers. So you can think of that as like bringing the family together, remembering conversations from Thanksgiving 20 years ago, hanging on to something. Sometimes that means hanging on to a grudge or a time when they were wronged. Sometimes it means hanging on to really beautiful memories, but feminine energy, might say around the Thanksgiving table, I remember when Grandpa Gene said this 20 years ago, and masculine energy has some idea that they've been meeting in the same place for Thanksgiving for 25 years, but doesn't necessarily remember that specific thing.
Having awareness of this can supercharge your outcomes in every aspect of your life. So I'm a licensed real estate agent. We have about a dozen agents that work for me here in our brokerage. And every single agent, I don't know if there's any agents on the call, who runs the buying process, which client? It's almost always the female or feminine energy persona. And again, in this circumstance, it may not be like their gender at birth. It might be just the energy that they take on in that facet of their life. And then who runs the listing process? Who runs the selling process? It's almost always the masculine energy person. In fact, if you're in conversation with a buyer rep and you're talking to the masculine energy partner, you're wasting your time. In fact, you're probably even achieving a negative value outcome because you might be trying to figure out what are their needs. Their needs are irrelevant. It's the feminine energy partner that's driving this thing. You need to figure out who they are and get to know them and make sure you're meeting their needs. Likewise, when you're at a listing appointment and you realize
So that's when you're selling a home.
that's right. Yep. When you're selling a home, if you're an agent and you're sitting at the dinner table with the feminine energy partner, you need to hey, is Mr. Seller coming here? Because I think it'd be really valuable to have all the stakeholders here. Mrs. Seller is probably not selling that home. That's just 99% of the time not how it works. So understanding these energies and this is not to stereotype people. This is to understand people, to serve people, to understand that we're wired differently, and it drives everything that we do.
Lots of good discussion there about people feeling like they have both of them in themselves. That's absolutely true. We all have both of them in ourselves to varying degrees, and we all can consciously or subconsciously step into the other. So we can, look at, say, like I can look at the masculine list and decide tomorrow I'm just going to behave exactly that way very consciously. Some of it may feel very natural to me. Some of it may feel a little more forced, but it's all within us. It's just like dials that we can turn up or turn down. But we all have something that we're born with. It often parallels our biological sex. It often does not, right? We all know of, say, homosexual relationships, either gay relationships or lesbian relationships. Those people have the same sex assigned at birth, and yet we can look at them and know one person is more feminine and one person is more masculine because that's the energy that they're born with. So this often parallels our biological sex, and sometimes it doesn't, but it's about knowing what energy we feel most comfortable in, where we feel most at home, and then trying to spend as much time in that energy and not forcing ourselves into the other energy to be socially accepted, or to feel like we have to in order to get our way in a conversation, or we need to because that's what society demands of us or our job demands of us. But instead saying, how can I live in the energy that feels most aligned to me and use that as my superpower?
So I'll speak to a really great fallacy in Western civilization, which is it's weak to be feminine, right? It's weak to be feminine. Here's a fun little graphic of the Spartan soldiers, the 300, that stood against an army of 1 million at Thermopylae. We think of these types of groups as being really masculine groups, right? But nothing could be further from the truth. These soldiers, they stood shoulder to shoulder. They were actually sent out by their wives. The soldiers did not just march into combat on their own. They were sent by their wives, and their wives said, "Return with your shield or on it." Because if you drop your shield to run away to escape from battle, the phalanx would fall and your brothers would die. Um, Masculine energy is set on fire by feminine power, and true power lies in androgyny. If you go look at, say,
Like Usher last night
like
at
Usher,
the Super
right?
Bowl, he's like wearing sequins and jewels.
That's right. That's right. Every man respects this person and wants to be like them, but at the same time, every woman is like attracted to this man and wants to be with them, and vice versa. Like Taylor Swift, she owns that stage with pure feminine power, and you can see like the masculine dominance as she's leading her dance troupe. So, and if you ever meet someone that they feel flat, they feel like they're missing like a dimension of their personality, it's because they have neither energy. They maybe as a young boy they were taught that they aren't allowed to be loud and aggressive and express themselves, and that masculine energy has just been kind of tamped down their whole life. Or the caricature of a kind of sad sack husband whose wife doesn't set him on fire, or a wife that feels like she has to contain her feminine power and not draw people in. True power lies in androgyny, and being able to tap into this incredible power source. Here's a great example. I recently had a sense that a friend of mine needed a call. I haven't talked to this man in like 6 months. I just picked up the phone and I said, "Hey, man, I just feel like you needed a call. Are you doing okay?" And he said, "Nick, I don't know why you called. I can't believe it, but I just had this like knockdown, drag out fight with my wife. And like, I mean, I don't think we're getting divorced, but I feel like that's like kind of where we're at. And I just," and he just kind of unloaded on me. Like, how did I know to make that call? Feminine power is a sensing power. And if I denied the feminine power within myself, I wouldn't have thought to pick up the phone. Oh, there's no rational reason to pick up the phone. No, no, no. Feminine power is more often than not correct, and you need to learn how to tap into that. So the worst thing you could ever do to yourself is to neuter your masculine or feminine power, and or to be imbalanced where you're all masculine or all feminine. You can see these beautiful things within you. So I love the comments there, and you all feel free to keep the comments coming here. We'd love to keep chatting about this. So it is not at all weak to be feminine. Elaine just raised $15 million in like 3 days with pure feminine power. Everyone is drawn to her. If you're out yelling and shouting and trying to, I don't know, whip people into giving you money in a capital raise, like I couldn't imagine a more hopeless approach to that problem domain, right? Like certain problems lend themselves to masculine or feminine energy better. And if you need to go after like an acquisition, I could see how you could use masculine energy to just be laser focused in hunter mode to go get that thing. I could see how you could use feminine power too to just call every broker and get them out hunting for you and bringing you the deals. There can be different ways to achieve an objective through masculine or feminine power.
We had this one relationship with a very large broker in our area. I'll give a little bit of it away, but I'm going to try to keep it somewhat anonymous. He basically just disregarded us for years, despite us calling, writing offers, writing very serious offers. We could look at the close data on these transactions and see that in, say, a $40 million transaction, we were off by like $1 million. So we were very serious buyers. One of the transactions, we actually had offered more, and we're like, why would he not have sold to us? The seller would have ended up with more money overall. And finally, one day, and Nick was really like approaching him with masculine energy, and I was like really confused by him. I'm like, it's not like we're offering, 20 million on these $40 million buildings. Like nothing here makes sense. I was trying to use my masculine mind, my thinking mind, my sorting mind, trying to solve a problem. And instead, I just called him one day on my cell phone and I said, Abe, I just had a baby, and his name is also Abe, and I call him AB Baby. And he started laughing, and he's like, "Oh, when I was in high school, all the girls called me Abe the Babe." And I'm like, "Oh, that's so sweet. You know, he's just like 2 weeks old, so he's just AB Baby, but I'll keep that in mind for high school. We really want to see that apartment building that you just listed last week. Any chance we can, come up and see it?" And he's like, "Yeah, tell you what, I have like 4 buildings. Why don't you drive up? We'll go out to lunch. We'll look at all of them all day." I'm like, "Oh, that'd be awesome. You know what? Baby Abby was just born like 2 weeks ago. So I'm gonna have him in like a carrier, and I might have to like stop and maybe nurse and that sort of thing. But maybe you and Nick can look at some of the units and I'll like take a break to nurse, but we'll make it work. I'm excited for the two Abes to meet." And he's like, "Oh no, we'll make sure you see all the units. We'll take breaks when you need to." It was like, I remember getting off the phone, and my office is across the hall, and like running over here to Nick, and I'm like, "He took my call. He took my call. I don't know what happened. He took my call." And now we have like a pretty decent relationship with him. We still haven't closed a transaction yet. We'll figure that out someday. But just coming at it from a totally different energy. Masculine energy had not worked for years.
Mm-hmm.
And so just trying a different tactic with this person, and it built rapport between us. And I think eventually we will do business. But that's an example of how both energies are great. And it's about just doing what's in your own nature. If I had come at him of like, "I don't know why you don't take our offers. None of this makes sense to me." Like, that's not in my nature. I can do that. I can think that way, but that's not in my nature. But coming at him from a place of connection, and particularly a place of connection about something that's vulnerable, telling him like, "I just had a baby. I'm in a vulnerable state. I'm going to bring this little baby, and we're going to be together, and we're going to be talking about business," which is the opposite of vulnerable, but I feel okay being vulnerable with you. And it totally changed the trajectory of our relationship.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about the three.
We're almost at the end.
Yeah, we'll talk about the 3 U's and the 3 C's. So if you're not putting together a cheat sheet, now's your chance.
Absolutely.
This is the 3 things that you never do with feminine energy. So if you're the masculine energy partner in the relationship, just jot these things down. Never make your partner feel unseen. And this is something that's really challenging, I think, for masculine energy, because we get so focused on a particular outcome, and we become blind to our surroundings, to the people who matter most. And so I have to constantly challenge myself to check in with Elaine. The solution to this problem, by the way, is just to give your partner attention, like constantly, all the time. So literally the first thing Elaine experiences when she wakes up is hopefully physical touch for me, and me saying, "How are you doing? Is there anything you need?" And hopefully that's the last thing she feels at night. Rubbing her back, asking her, "Is there anything you need?" I try to make sure those are the feelings that she experiences first and last as her consciousness goes in and out of sleep. And throughout the day, I mean, I think probably like 10 times today, I've asked, "Is there anything I can do for you?" You mentioned I needed to call Amex and like fix some customer service issue. Okay, I'm gonna get on the phone, baby. I'm gonna take care of that. I'm gonna make sure that you feel like you are seen and your needs are being met. The next one is, don't ever make your partner feel like they aren't understood. A lot of times feminine energy, it just wants to work through a problem. It doesn't actually want to solve the problem. It just wants to work through the problem. So how can you do that? You can ask questions. You can be fully present. You can say, "Awesome. And then how did you feel? And how did they feel? And where do you think this is going to go?" Allow them to tell a story, and just be fully present. If you're patronizing with them, if you are in judgment, they will hate you for it. You have to actually love them, care about them, and understand this is part of the process. And finally, never, ever, ever make your feminine partner feel unsafe. So as a masculine partner, there's not a lot of situations where I feel unsafe physically or like psychologically or legally. So as I just mentioned, we get into like low level legal like nonsense
Shenanigans.
Yeah, so that's it right there. I just called it nonsense, but Elaine might say legal attacks, because feminine energy likes to make problems bigger. So we'll make this nonsense into attacks so that it gets the proper attention from the masculine partner. And what Elaine wants to know is that I see this for the threat that it really is, and I'm gonna go crush that threat, right? So the mere fact that I minimize the problem and I say this legal nonsense is going to do the opposite of reassure her. It's going to make her feel like I don't hear her and I don't understand her, and ultimately, like, she feels unsafe. And now she has to step up. She has to be the masculine partner to go fight this legal nonsense, because it's not nonsense, it's a legal attack. Does that all make sense what I just said there? Just a small word, a small turn of a phrase makes all the difference when it comes to masculine and feminine energy.
I would say that's the thing I probably see most in couples who are in a similar phase of life to us, where there's, say, young children in the home, is the masculine partner is very focused on, say, being out of the house, earning an income, growing the family, or maybe setting up things for the family to do. And the feminine partner has diffuse attention. So they know that, like, there's a poopy diaper on the floor over there, but this kid over here is about to spill milk, but this kid's been outside for a little too long and they're only 5, so I'm a little bit worried about them, and the stove's going off, and all the things. And when they go to their partner and explain the diffuse attention and how it's very challenging to hold it all in the mind, and they want to be understood, they get solutions of, like, well, just go outside and get the kid and I'll go turn off the stove, and it's not about that. And then it just becomes, I'll take care of everything. And then there's this resistance that happens, there's a breakdown, and then the feminine energy partner feels like, I just have to do it all myself, I just have to take care of all of it myself. The masculine energy partner feels like they're not welcome or isn't sure how to, like, get the in. And so they retreat, they do less, not because they don't care, but because they're not quite sure what to do. They're very solutions focused. And if they've tried a solution and it didn't quite work, they're like, I don't know, I guess I just won't try. And instead, just recognizing each other's perspective and understanding how their different energies have different cognitive loads and different emotional loads, and understanding what's called a meadow report. So a meadow report is when feminine energy goes out into the meadow and looks at all the berries and all the flowers and all the tree barks and understands exactly, this one's yellow, but this one's gold. And when I ate the gold one, my baby got sick, and on and on and on. And that's very important because that's how feminine energy stays alive. Masculine energy goes out and kills the thing and brings it home, drags home the animal. And so when feminine energy starts to tell the masculine partner about the meadow report, masculine energy couldn't care less. Like, did you feed the children or not? Did you bring home, food for us to eat or not? But it's important that feminine energy remembers all of those things, that this one's yellow and this one's light yellow and this one's gold, because they have different meanings. And so masculine energy, if he leans into that and says, tell me about that. Oh, what does that mean, right? Staying in curiosity, staying in human connection, that can totally magnify feminine energy, really open it, really make it feel very safe. That's something I see time and time again, particularly when there's young children in the home, and that diffuse awareness for feminine energy is a big part of her day-to-day life. And if you're in that zone and you're experiencing that, the breakthrough is to just talk to each other, to just truly listen to each other of, tell me what your experience is. Oh, you wake up in the morning and you feel this pressure that you have to go out and, say, earn money or, whatever. Oh, and then you get to share, these are the feelings I have. I have to worry about soccer lessons and music lessons. And you might be surprised what your partner feels, because it might be very different than what you're experiencing. And you might see that you have the same goal. You just don't quite realize it. So a little bit of an aside there, but I wanted to bring that up because I see that so often in kind of the general stage of marriages that many people are in. So there's the 3 C's. So we just went over the 3 U's that crush feminine energy, and now we'll do the 3 C's that crush masculine energy: feeling criticized, closed, and controlled. So criticized is basically feminine energy kind of always wants to improve and tweak and dress and do all the things, and masculine energy interprets that as criticism. Again, I'll be hopelessly transparent. Early on in our business dealings, 10 years ago, Nick would get off a call with a seller or something like that. And literally the moment he set down the phone, I'm like, Nick, you could have tried this, or you could have said that. Or, when you said this, like, your voice sounded a little weird. Like, oh, I can't believe I used to say those things, and then I'm telling you all about it now. Like, imagine how that must have felt. Like, Nick then, had this feeling of, gosh, I'm trying to go out and build this real estate empire for her so that our family has freedom and she wants security and all these things. And yet every time I pick up the phone, I'm getting criticized. And so instead,
maybe I should stop picking up the phone.
Instead, the solution to that is to admire and appreciate. I'm so grateful that you make those calls. I'm so grateful for how hard you work. I know you really care about us. I know you really care about the people that we're serving. I know you're really trying hard to put a deal together. And from that place, there's so much more energy to go out and do the thing. Feeling closed is the second of the three C's. So that has a bit of a sexual connotation there, but it's not just sexual, but feeling closed off from your partner. Like your partner doesn't want to talk to you, like they don't have time for you, like they don't have energy for you. The solution to that is to be open, to be playful, to reserve some of your energy for your partner, to ask yourself, if this is the most important relationship in my life, how can I prioritize it? How can I let some of these other things go lower on the list so that I have the energy to be open and playful in this relationship? And you can see how these go so hand in hand, that if the masculine partner is listening to the feminine partner and listening to that meta report and saying, wow, I didn't realize you had 25 things on your mind. What can I do to serve you? Oh, if you took care of the swim lessons and the piano lessons and these things, that would free up some of my energy to spend time with you. I'd be happy to do that, right? So you can see how these U's and C's go closely together. And when both parties are really seeking to meet each other's needs, there's like a magnification, like an effortless upward spiral in the relationship. And then the third is feeling controlled. And the solution there is to give love and freedom. Masculine energy loves to go out into the world, loves to try new things. I think loves to do reckless things. Like Nick likes to, he just learned to ski. And I'll be honest, I'm horrified. He's 40. I feel like we're like one femur break away from just a life-changing day. And I'm like, I could tell him he can't ski, and he probably wouldn't because he loves me. But he's pretty physically fit. He's in the gym every day. He took lessons. He's doing all the right things. He's not going down the double blacks. Like, he's clearly thinking through the Elaine algorithm of how can I do this in a way where she feels most comfortable. And he loves it. And he tells me how, man, when I'm going down the mountain, I get like all these ideas about, our business and mindset and controlling your thoughts. And I want to get the kids involved. And it's not something I'm excited about. We just went to a ski resort and he and the kids skied and I helped them get dressed and then went off and did my own thing. But giving freedom lights up the relationship. And maybe someday I'll ski too. I don't know. But seeing him excited about that lights up the relationship. And you can be absolutely certain that the moment they're done skiing, there's a ton of gratitude of, thank you so much for helping me to get the kids ready. Thanks for, getting the lift tickets and taking care of everything. What do you want to do? Do you want to go to the spa? Do you want to go get something to eat? Do you just want time to yourself? Do you want to go read a book? Like, what can I do to serve you? Because there's that mutual relationship there. When you give freedom, very often the masculine partner will want to spend that freedom with their feminine partner. They'll turn it right back around. Well, actually, what I want to do is be with you. But then it's from a place of abundance, not a place of control. So those are the three C's for masculine energy.
All right, there's a test. We're going to share a story from our unenlightened selves. So I hope you appreciate our vulnerability with y'all. Like we are by no means perfect. We are a work in progress. And I just want to show you how we've applied some of these principles. So let me tell you a story, and then I want you to tell me the 15 ways I screwed this up. So our first winter in Minnesota, Elaine wanted to get snow tires for our cars. We had 2 cars, and this was a lot of money for us back then. It's like $1,000 per vehicle to buy the tires, get them. You got to swap them twice a year. It's a big logistical hassle. And I said, baby, that's stupid. That's just a complete waste of money. That was literally what I said, because I was not very good at this at the time. And I said, it's not going to be worth the money. It's going to be this huge hassle. We don't have the money. There's no way we're getting snow tires. And for a little while, we were kind of mad at each other about this. You ever have one of these stupid little disagreements that you're kind of fuming about? Like, you're not having sex or good sex during that time. You might get on each other's nerves about picking the thing for dinner or who picked up. You're kind of at odds, and there's this stupid little thing brewing under the surface. And so I said, okay, I'm going to do an analysis. I love spreadsheets. I'm going to do some underwriting. I'm going to figure out, is it actually worth it to get snow tires? So I did all this research and stopping distances and prices. And we can get the price lower if we go to Costco. And yeah, it does improve it this much and reduces the chance of an accident this much. So I came back to my wife and I said, congratulations, you won, I lost. I did some research and it turns out it actually is a really good investment to get snow tires if you do these things. Congratulations. And she was even more furious at me. And then I was furious at her, like she won and I lost. Like, how dare she be angry at like what does she want for me to feel a certain way? Like she can't control my feelings. That's outrageous. And then we were even more upset. So
In the like 1 hour a day we had while I was in residency, like it was like a month long that we were like fighting about this. It was a big deal.
This was a big deal. This was a big deal. Okay, so put it into chat. Here's your cheat sheet. Here's the 3 C's and the 3 U's. How did I screw this up so bad? How did I screw this up so bad? Go ahead and pipe it into chat.
She experienced all of the U's in
She
that
experienced
interaction.
all
So
of
it's
the U's.
Unseen, not understood, and unsafe.
That's right. So once I had more enlightenment, years later, I went back to her and I said, I have a feeling. I have this strange. I have this hallucination, and tell me if this is a crazy hallucination. If I went back in time and I told you, baby, if you want snow tires, I want snow tires.
I love how when we're in these presentations, you say baby. He never says that.
I actually said it in our KPI meeting this morning about revenue to our accountant, and I had to clarify it. No, Mel, I'm not calling you baby. I'm talking about revenue. We had all-time high for revenue this week. So I was like, yeah.
That was super distracting. I'm sorry. Why don't you say it like how you say it in real life?
I have a feeling, I have a hallucination that all you wanted was for me to want snow tires. And even if we couldn't afford them, even if it made all the sense in the world or didn't make any sense at all you wanted was for me to hear you and to want the snow tires. Is that accurate? Is that the case?
Yeah, I mean, we had just moved to Minnesota. We hadn't driven in snow in like 15 years, and we had these young babies with these little heads that bounced all around. And I wasn't with you guys so much of the time because I was at the hospital and you were driving around. And I couldn't have lived if you had gotten injured or died, or I just worried about you all the time that there was a thing that we could have that would make us safer. And yeah, maybe we'd need to sacrifice in some other parts of our budget, but you're my husband and those are my children. Like I'd give all the salary to make it so that you guys are safe in driving around in the dark in one of the snowiest states in the country.
I'm so sorry that I did not hear you and I made you feel unsafe.
Mm-hmm.
I know better today.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
That's it. It's really that easy.
We didn't have to spend the money. We didn't have to do the analysis. All I had to do was meet her needs and not give her all of the U's, right? That's all I had to do. So does it make sense to you how this could be a superpower? It's not that complicated to meet the needs. And you can have a lot of fun with this, right? So I'm going to Tacoma here in a couple days to go do some underwriting on a new purchase, and my favorite thing to do is to go visit an apartment building at midnight and just like walk around for an hour or two and just see how does it feel. That's when you really experience the character of a community. Like, does it feel safe? And I mean, I grew up in like a pretty tough neighborhood, so I have that kind of sense about me, like that you just get from the youngest of age. And I would be horribly deserving Elaine if I didn't tell her about it, right? Because she could probably sense it one way or another. If I didn't like clear it with her first, I could say, "Hey, baby, I'm gonna go do my like midnight underwriting thing."
You never call me baby in real life, though.
Hey, Elaine, I'm going to go do my underwriting. Are you okay with that?
Yeah. Can you call me as soon as you get back to the hotel? Because I'm gonna try to fall asleep, but I know that I'll sleep better when I know that you're back at your hotel too.
You know what I could do? I've always got that headset on. I actually don't have it on because we're on a webinar. It's like the only time I don't have a headset on. Would it be meaningful to you if I like called you and just like walked around and you could just like fall asleep hearing me walking around, and so you'd know that I was okay?
I know this one's like a B-class neighborhood, so I'm not that worried. You certainly are always welcome to call me, and I will answer. And and everything, but I think I mostly just want to fall asleep, but I know I'm going to wake up with the baby in the middle of the night. And if I don't have a message from you that you're back in the hotel, I'm going to freak out. So when the baby wakes me up, I see the message that you've also arrived at the hotel, then I'll be able to sleep well until morning.
So look at that. Like, it's scary sometimes to talk about your feelings, right? And it's scary to offer your partner what they want and what they need, because I want freedom. I don't want to be tethered to some headset with my wife snooping on me, but I would be dishonoring her. As her husband, I would be dishonoring her if I did not offer her that opportunity. If I did not offer the opportunity to forfeit my freedom in order for her to feel safe. But then the mere fact that I offered it, it probably met her need just by itself. Does that make sense to you guys? Like, just step back from yourselves for a moment. The next time you're in one of these tough situations, and just ask, what can I do to meet the needs of my spouse? And talk about your feelings, and talk about, okay, I don't feel that afraid. I just know when I wake up, I want to see that message that I know my husband is safe. That's all you need to do, is just meet your spouse's needs, and they will give you everything you could ever possibly want.
All right. Here is our never evers. You can kind of think of this as like some homework. So masculine energy thrives in competition. So it will be shut down by sympathy. So never ever offer sympathy when someone is in masculine energy. Again, keep in mind, a male person can be in feminine energy. If, say, a male person has just had their mother die, they might be more in their feminine energy. That's a time to offer sympathy. But if it's, say, a masculine person who's in the middle of a big athletic event and they fell and sprained their ankle, they probably don't want sympathy in that moment. They probably want praise of, you were doing so good, we'll get it next year, you've got this. So never offer sympathy to masculine energy.
And feminine energy, conversely, thrives in cooperation. It will be shut down by challenge. So, to the 49ers, after the big loss, the worst thing you could possibly do is say, oh, I'm so sorry for you guys. They might punch you in the face. You say, you'll get them next year, just like Elaine said. But conversely, feminine power, if you try to challenge feminine power to step up in a competitive environment, it will shrink away from that. That's not why feminine energy was put on this earth. That feminine energy brings people together to win together. So I always joke, Elaine loves team sports. So if we're like doing the laundry, I would much rather like see who can sort socks faster, right? And that would absolutely disgust her.
Oh, yeah. I'm like, no, we got to get all the kids together. We got to put them all over the floor.
The least efficient way you could do it, right?
We need to teach the kids, this is how you match them up by size, and these are the colors that go together.
So if I truly want to make my wife happy, if I want us to have some powerful romance later tonight, if I want to be excited about her saying yes to a new acquisition, I need to give her what she needs. I'm going to say, baby, I'm sorry, I keep saying, girl.
That's what you usually say, is girl.
Girl, we are going to sort some socks tonight. I'm going to be right by your side.
Can we get the kids involved in
Absolutely.
it too?
We can get the neighbors over.
I just love seeing
We can do a
Micah.
Facebook Live. All of the people can cooperate to sort the socks. We will never get a single sock sorted, but it's okay because we're all going to be doing it together. That's going to meet her needs. It's going to light her up. So I have to set aside the thing that I want to make sure that my wife gets what she wants. But when you do that, ultimately your partner is going to be excited to meet your needs, in any time, any way that you want. So don't try to challenge feminine power.
You can never tell feminine energy to let it go. Feminine energy needs to remember, right? Going back to that idea of the Meadow report, if feminine energy releases the memory that light yellow and gold, or light yellow and yellow, are healthy and she can feed it to her children, but the gold flowers make everyone sick, that could potentially be a life or death situation. So feminine energy needs to remember. They need to remember how people felt, what people said, what the situation felt like. And telling feminine energy to let it go is basically saying, put yourself at more risk. Deny your evolutionary drive to remember these things because you believe that they will protect you, and instead just forget about them. So when feminine energy comes home and says, I had this difficult conversation at work, and so-and-so said this and this happened, and I'm not sure what happened, but it seems like some people are mad. If masculine energy says, let it go, that's a complete affront to feminine energy.
Yes.
Of, well, what is my safety in that situation? How can I have cooperation in that situation? How can I bring people together in that situation if I don't understand how people are feeling and what's happening? Feminine energy wants to make it big, wants to figure it out. So telling feminine energy to let it go it's like a death sentence to feminine energy, because it literally goes against all of evolutionary behavior to remember those things for the survival of the species.
Finally, don't try to coach masculine energy. It doesn't work. So, feminine power, your job is to send masculine power out, to unleash masculine power upon the world, to go out to conquer. And if you say, that spear, are you sure that's the right choice? Maybe you should go with the club. I don't know if the spear has the right reach to get that bear. Like, it's gonna crush masculine power. Masculine power loves to problem solve through competition, through trial and error. Hey, that other caveman over there, he's got the club out. Maybe I should try the club instead of the spear. But it's not very masculine power is not very receptive to coaching, and that's something that feminine power loves to offer. But it's going to ultimately shut down masculine power. And I do not recommend trying that in an intimate setting. That's going to really defeat the energy in a moment. So whatever you can do to empower, encourage, unleash your partner, you're going to have lots of really amazing polarity from that. And if you try to coach your partner, there's a good chance they're going to interpret that as criticism, even though that's not how you intend it. They're going to interpret that as criticism, and it will deflate their masculine power.
In a healthy relationship where there's a lot in the proverbial bank account, in that emotional bank account, the way to approach that is to seek permission. So if there is something that's really on your heart, in no means are we saying you should just live in, upset or something that your partner's doing, but you can ask for permission. Hey, would it be okay if I gave you some coaching around this idea? Or are you open to that idea? And just that question diffuses masculine energy, puts them into more of a feminine energy state where they're more interested in connection and cooperation. And then you can share that idea. And just that it still gives that masculine partner freedom to say no, or no, not right now, or no, but later, or whatever it is. But that's a way that you can do that in a very affirming, empowering way, because I don't want someone to hear this and say, well, does that mean I can't have a thought, or that I can't, encourage my partner to improve, or those sorts of things. It's our hope that everyone in their intimate relationship is constantly helping each other grow, constantly up-leveling each other. So if you have something that like, hey, I just discovered this new way of meditating, or this new way of exercising, or whatever it is, and I want to share it with my partner, ask for permission of, hey, do you want to hear about this thing I'm really interested in? And they will want to connect with you. And from that place, they will be very attracted to that energy. But if it's, hey, I've been doing this meditation and you have to do it now too, that will shut down masculine energy very, very quickly. So I hope that distinction makes sense there.
It can be a simple framing too, like, hey, I wouldn't use the spear on the tiger. That's very different from, I want to see you use the club on that tiger. Like, that's the difference between coaching, which defeats masculine energy, and challenge, which masculine energy loves to rise to meet challenge. So you can say the same thing, just framing it ever so slightly differently can achieve a totally different result.
Yep. Anytime Nick's working on an acquisition, right, and these things take like days, weeks, months, I check on it, right? Because I need to know in terms of like investor calls that I'm doing, and thinking about, deploying our property management resources or other things. And so I'll walk over and I'll say, how's that acquisition? And he'll give me some sort of, information piece of, oh, I had this call, or I'm waiting on this thing. And years ago, I would have sat down and I would have coached. I would have said, but did you think about this? And have you called that person? And I told you to call this other person, and you're doing it all wrong. Let me just do it. Like, we lived in that world for years. And instead I might say, is there anything I can do to serve you? Is there anything I can do to support you? Is there anything I can do to help you? And if the answer is yes, then I listen to that and help. And if the answer is no, then there's this like playful, I know you're going to get it. Let me know when you do. And it's just this like unleashing to the world of, I want him to focus his energy on accomplishing the outcome, not focusing his energy on worrying about what I think about the outcome. We know what we want. We know that we both want, say, the apartment building. We've made that agreement. And if I spend time coaching him through it, then when he's on the call or doing the things, he's going to be running this second program of, well, what does Elaine think of me? And is she going to be happy? And am I going to be criticized when I get back? And all the things. And instead, if I send him out to conquer, then he knows he can come back with a victory. Hey, I got it. The purchase agreement is signed. It's done. Due diligence is starting. So that's an example there of the difference. And I hope you see that we're on this journey together, right? We're steps ahead of where we were years ago, but we've shared the things that we used to do that at the time we thought our relationship was like an 8 or a 9 out of 10. Like, we thought we were living a really good relationship. And when we shifted some of these behaviors, it just opened this whole new level, this whole new way of connecting. And I hope you see yourself in some of the before examples, maybe some of the after examples. I hope you see that we're still on this journey. We're still dedicating a ton of our time, a ton of our resources into learning more about each other, going to couples specific masterminds, doing couples specific events and things together so that we can bring new ideas into our relationship and to continue to improve. Because in this area, you feel the most joy. You also feel the most potential for suffering. And so if you can eliminate or drastically reduce that suffering bucket and magnify the heck out of the joy bucket, well, then that carries over into all of your relationships, all of the things that you do. You just sort of walk on air. Like, I just walk around all day and I'm just like, my husband just loves me more than anything in the world. Like, I don't care if I dropped my sandwich at lunch or this happened. Like, I just feel like invincible.
Well, that's all feminine power needs to feel.
Absolutely. Someone asked a good question. You talked last night about what happens to the syndications in the event of your deaths. What would happen in the event of a divorce? So that one's a little more complicated. Technically, I own Black Swan Real Estate, which is kind of the asset management level.
Oh, snap.
And Nick owns Black Swan Living, which is our property management level. So technically, Nick reports to me in our structure there, and that would continue. But likely, if it was some sort of very disagreeable divorce, which is I think what you're asking about there, then we would voluntarily call upon the trust to put the board of directors in place, which is the 6 people that we chose, and the 7th professional tiebreaker, professional trustee, and let those people make decisions if we were in a place where we couldn't disagree.
To a great extent, this thing that we've built, it's like a baby, right? And it's like Solomon's dilemma. Like, I would never be able to see like the baby cut in half. That's just beyond anything I could possibly tolerate. So even if something like that did happen, I still I don't know how you feel about it, but it would be hard for me to imagine something happening to the baby.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I definitely think of, obviously it's a little bit different, but I think of our business as one of our children.
Yeah.
And especially because we've raised the business at the same time that we've raised our children.
Yep.
And we've seen the business grow and take on its own personality and all of the maturation. Obviously, I think you all know what I mean. Our human children are a millionfold more valuable to us, but there is that feeling that the baby or that the business is a baby that we've had. Absolutely. So very good question. Just a quick recap of our announcements. Still a little bit of room in Black Swan Fund 3. So if you want to jump in there, blackswanfund3.com, signing your paperwork and telling us about your funding timeline is what holds your spot. Put your name on the wait list for Fund 4 if you would like to, blackswanfund4.com. I don't know when that will come, but that gives you priority access to Fund 4. If you'd like to join us here in Rochester, the website for our Real Estate Real Life 2024 event is blackswan.mykajabi.com/Real Life 2024. And then please join us next month on March 18th at 7:30 p.m. Central for our March Community Power Hour with our coach, Greg Dickerson. Invite your friends, invite people who are interested in real estate. He is the real deal. He is so knowledgeable, such a wealth of experience, and I'm just so excited that he's made himself available not only to do an interview, but to do flash coaching. So if you have a question, you raise your hand and he'll do coaching with you right then and there. You can subscribe to our calendar at blackswancalendar.com. That'll put all of our events on your calendar. That's a wrap. Thank you guys so much.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day. We hope this provides you with joy in all of your relationships, particularly your closest relationships. Think about these communication principles. Think about ways you can move into the infinite game, move into the third alternative, stay out of judgment, stay in curiosity. Think about getting into a level 3 relationship, the differences in masculine and feminine energy and how those are superpowers, and you just have to utilize them at the right time. Thank you all so much. It's always a pleasure to be together and talk about what's most important. And I think that's a wrap.
Yep.
Have
Thanks
a good
so
night,
much.
everyone.